Joining us now to discuss where we stand at this point in the race is Diamond and Silk, the host of the show Crystal Clear on Newsmax TV. So we actually haven't talked since the Republican National Convention, and I know that you guys were watching it. I was following your feeds, and I saw your commentary. But let me ask you, coming out of that event, are you feeling more optimistic about President Trump's chances going into 2020?
Well, listen, I was feeling optimistic before the event, but the event just hammered it home.
Gave him the Trump bump.
That's right. And I appreciate the fact that the RNC put people up there on the stage that benefited from President Trump's policy.
That's right.
The one thing our president don't have to do is convince America. He has a record. Now, all they need to do is compare his record with Jim Crow Joe Biden's record, and then you can make your decision based on that.
That's right.
And you're exactly right. I thought one of the best parts of that whole event was the humanization of some of the issues. It's one thing if we talk about the statistics, the jobless claims, and when you hear a jobless claim, for example, when you hear the millions of people who are out of work right now, it's sometimes hard to ignore the fact that there are people behind those figures. There are people that are struggling. There are people that are overcoming hardship right now, and they demonstrated some of those people during the convention, people who are out of work right now. And then last night, for example, we see House Speaker Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done, really going against everything else she's saying. So what's your response to actions like that?
Well, look at where that's happening at. It's happening in Democrat-ran cities. The highest unemployment numbers is coming from Democrat-ran cities. So if these Democrats are sitting back saying that these people want to go back to work, they want to feed their family, then open back up your state so that these people can go back to work and feed their family.
And when it comes to old Miss Nancy Pelosi, we talk about her on our show.
Yeah.
When it comes to Nancy Pelosi, she's a liar and she's a hypocrite.
A hypocrite.
And because I see her in a salon without a mask on, I'm questioning now the seriousness of this virus.
That's right.
It's a 98% recovery rate. Why do they have things shut down?
Why?
And why have they flattened people's livelihoods with this foolishness?
That's right.
I want people like the Nancy Pelosi's to go somewhere and sit down. How old is she? 100? Is she 100 years old? 80 years old? It's time for her. We need term limits.
That's right.
Do term limits right away. You want to preach to us and tell us what to do. We don't want to hear it no more.
That's right.
She need to go somewhere and sit down. She's the most vulnerable for catching this virus. How do we know she ain't spreading? They need to test her for COVID-19.
Test her and Jim Crow.
That's right.
And when you think about this, too, this is a conversation that a lot of people have been having for a long time. The American people at the very beginning of the coronavirus pandemic were willing to shut down their businesses in order to make sure that their loved ones did not get sick. And you touch on it right there. It's the idea that there isn't a clear message coming from our elected leaders. I mean, at one point, the models were what we were talking about, and they weren't accurate. At one point, they were telling us not to wear masks, and then they reverse course and all of a sudden tell us to wear masks. And then right now, I mean, the situation with House Speaker Pelosi, there are people going without paychecks, people who may be evicted at the end of the month, yet it's okay if these elected officials want to get a haircut. Is this the problem that is facing the American voters right now, is that they just don't like politicians, period?
Well, they can't stand these career politicians that's working for their own greed and not the need of people, that tell you to do something, but they don't do the thing that they tell you to do. They want to control our lives. They the one that got their feet on our necks.
That's right.
We open up these states and let these people go back to work instead of losing their livelihoods.
That's right.
People are tired of it. We're tired of the Nancy Pelosi, the Maxine Waters, the Jim Crow Joe Biden, the Governor Cuomo that ordered COVID-19 patients in there with the elderly that took out a lot of our elderly people.
That's right.
We're tired of it.
That's right.
Enough is enough. And this is what I want the American citizens to do. Vote for President Donald J. Trump, because he's the only one that want to make sure you have a job, you work, your state is open back up. He's the only one looking out for you. I can't depend on these other career politicians.
And you mentioned New York Governor Andrew Cuomo right there, too. And amid all of this, amid the idea that you just mentioned, that he had a policy that quite literally affected thousands of deaths in his home city of New York City, and then he has the audacity to come out with a book in the upcoming months talking about his way of getting through the coronavirus pandemic, as if we're through it right now. So I think that highlights the hypocrisy that we're talking about. But before I let you two go, you and I, we've been talking about the unrest on the streets for a long time, how every single politician should be condemning violence, yet they weren't until this week. And now we see a hard pivot by former Vice President Joe Biden on this issue. What do you make of them all of a sudden saying that they are condemning violence, that rioting and looting is inappropriate? What do you make of that pivot?
Well, first of all, they are liars and hypocrites, because what staffers that work for their campaign, donating money to bail out these alleged criminals.
That's right.
So how you gonna come out now because people are now calling you out and say, oh, we condemn it? No, you're for it. You want to keep this chaos and this confusion going. Joe Biden don't have a clue. He don't even have a plan. That's why he's trying to use President Donald J. Trump plan to get elected. It's not going to work. He could continue to hide in the basement and continue to let President Donald J. Trump lead from the front.
That's right.
And everything you're saying right there wraps up exactly what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show. The idea that people are sick of career politicians because they're starting to see that these individuals just want to stay in office. They just want their power. They just want their paycheck. It doesn't matter if people on the streets are going without all of those things, as long as the status quo stays in place, and that is what they're content with doing. I think you're right on for saying that. But Diamond and Silk, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, giving your commentary on these very pressing issues. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.